Hello and welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be diving into what one of the 7 Hermetic principles is, and the first one that I'm going to be talking about is the first principle, which is the law of mentalism. And this is the idea that the all is mind and the universe is mental. So in this video, I'm going to be diving into what that means, my interpretation of it, and how you can apply this to your life. Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this is my second video in this video series that I'm going to be doing about my interpretation of the book that is known as the Kybalion and my interpretation of the 3 Initiates version of the Kybalion. So if you haven't already watched my first video on an introduction to what the Kybalion is and what it means and what it is, you can check out that video by clicking the link either here or here, and in that video I dive into my interpretation of what the Kybalion is in the first place. But if you're at this point watching this video, I'm going to assume that you have a general understanding of what the Kybalion is. The Kybalion is a general collection of the teachings of a man, or if he was a man, known as Hermes Trismegistus. Because of his teachings, essentially all religions were born out of his teachings, and all ideas and thoughts around the nature of reality were born out of his ideas. His teachings were so great that he became gods. He became the Egyptian god known as Thought, and he became the Greek god known as Hermes. In this video, I'm going to be diving into the 7 Hermetic principles, because essentially Hermes Trismegistus taught 7 principles that kind of summed up the collectivism of his teachings. In this video, I'm diving into what the first law or first principle means. Now, the first principle is called the principle of mentalism. Now, this one is really, really key because you cannot really understand the other principles of the 7 Hermetic principles unless you understand this one. This one really kind of sets the foundation for the understanding of the nature of reality, from which all the other principles are actually kind of built off of. So I want to start by sharing the idea of the direct quote from the Kybalion is that the all is mind, the universe is mental. And there's so much to that little statement that can be interpreted. Now, the brief explanation of it that I want to share directly from the 3 Initiates book is that this idea explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlying all the outward manifestations and appearances which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, and, in short, all that is apparent to our material senses. So this long-winded overview sentence is basically saying that the all is the very foundation and fabric of existence itself, in the words of Alan Watts there. And so the all represents this essentially this source field. Now, this is where very from the get-go, obviously, this has a high correlation and association with God. So there's this idea that, I mean, you absolutely can interpret this under the guise or name or label of God, but all in the end, it doesn't matter what you call it. The all, God, the quantum field, the field of love, the source field, the quantum field. Whatever you want to call it does not matter, because this principle is stating that there is a fabric amongst everything that represents the building block for reality to be built on top of. Reality is this perception, this conceived idea that is built on top of the structure of the all. The all is also correlated with this idea that there is a spirit, and the spirit is something that is unknown, undefinable, and non-material. Another way to explain it would be to call the all a universal and living singular mind. Now, for some people who listen to this, it's immediately all just going to ring true, and there's not much to yeah, got it, figured it out. But there's other people that are going to be listening to this and they're not going to quite understand. Because if you come from a religious background, you might be very in tune with the term God, but God as a source field in the very fabric and structure of existence doesn't quite make sense. Or even if you're coming from an atheist background as well, you're going to be like, wait. Sounds like you're explaining something that's very godlike. And this is open to your interpretation, because like I shared in the intro video, Kybalion requires, it cannot be dogma, it cannot be law, because You have to interpret it. It's so vague, so open-ended, that it requires your interpretation to turn it into wisdom. All I'm sharing right now is information, and I'm sharing my interpretation of that information into wisdom. My interpretation of the all is what I would call a God source field. I won't necessarily call it God. My favorite way to refer to it is the field of love, because love is the very foundation of, I also believe that love is the foundation of this energetic field that we live in. Now, the interesting part about the all, before I dive into a little bit more of my interpretation of this, is that this Kybalion was written forever ago, or rather, it wasn't even written forever ago. It was conducted forever ago. It was conducted in the earliest time of ancient Egypt. And back then, before we had anything remotely close to what quantum physics is now, supposedly there's this person out there who knows that what we know about quantum physics is going to be true. The more you learn about science, the more that you believe in spirituality. And that doesn't necessarily mean religion. It's two different things. But religions for a long time have discussed the idea of a God. But if you know anything about quantum physics, you know that quantum physics now validates the idea that there is a universal field of energy that connects every single thing. So this field of all, the field of oneness, is in a way a known fact. We know that everything is connected. We know that every single being on Earth, every particle, is all one energetic field that is all connected at the same time simultaneously. It's like a great big blanket that encompasses all that ever is, was, and ever could be. But all that is, was, and ever could be is also another interesting way to describe it, because that is the other component of the all that is very, very interesting. And it's also why it's very connected to a God source type of idea. The all is not linear. The all is not material. The all is the fabric. And from the fabric was birthed the idea that we have linear time. And so this field of energy, this field of love, this field of the all is not just what is. It's all that ever is, was, or ever could be, because it is the manifestation. We believe that linear time, but linear time does not exist. Everything is happening simultaneously, and supposedly some people are saying that multiple dimensions exist at the same time, supposedly. I'm not sure about that one yet, but everything that exists is all happening simultaneously at the same time. And so the all also kind of, in the Kybalion, validates that to some degree. The Kybalion was saying this, and the Hermetic Principle in philosophy suggests that everything that we are comes from this seed fabric of life. And from the seed fabric of life, you have special tools. You are not restricted. The reason that this principle is effective in our lives is, I will share later at the end of this video. This principle gives you the power and the will and the freedom to materialize any idea into matter. This is kind of where manifestation comes in to some degree, because one, the all is mind gives us an understanding. And I'm going to share that understanding in a second. But it also gives us this power to understand and believe and know that the universe is subject to our perception. Everything that happens in our reality is because we believe it's going to happen, because the all is mind. Magic can happen. If I believe in linear time, then I also believe that this wall in front of me can't be moved. I also believe that I have to show up at work tomorrow morning. I believe that it costs me, $100 to fill up a tank of gas. And these are all true, but this is all true based off of seedlings that have grown out of this nature of reality. The seeds that have grown out of this very fabric. This is, in a way, a meta belief. So you know how we have virtual reality these days now, and we can build worlds within our world. We're in this world, but now we can go build a world in VR. In a way, the simplest way to think about our reality in terms from us to the all is the exact same thing. We are a meta reality living within the grander scheme of the all. Our world is made up, it's made up based on our own perceptions, and man, we could go deeper into sure, we can fight back and forth whether we're actually living in an illusion or if we're living on the philosophical perception of illusion, but we can't know for sure. We could all be plugged into computers just like the Matrix, and even this Kybalion could be something that we're making up to find sense and find meaning in this reality. Or our illusions and our perceptions in this meta world that we're living in is just a metaphor, or not just a metaphor. It is actually a smaller macro world that we're living in within the grander scheme of the all. When you take this perspective, it suddenly gives you a massive scope to look at your life through. You look at your life through the idea that the mind is not dictating, but influencing your actions. Now, before I dive into that, I like to think of it this way. You as an entity, this being with a mind, your mind is part of the collective mind. And again, you might already be like, I got this, move on. But here's another way to explain it. It's kind of like Harry Potter, where Voldemort splits his soul into Horcruxes. And I think of it the same kind of way. We're all connected. How can we all be connected if I'm right here and you're right there on the other side of this video watching from a different point in time, in linear time? How can we be all connected if we have linear time? How can we all be all connected if I have this body? Voldemort in Harry Potter has his soul, but he fragments his soul into smaller pieces and he spreads them across different artifacts to contain his soul. The all as a mind is still the all that is mind. But if the all is mind is over there and that's everything, then how are we over here? Well, we're not. The all is mind that is all here is within us. We are each a container to carry the all. We are each a container that is holding a fragment of universal love, of God's source. We are fractals in a greater universe, is the more poetic way to describe it. And with that, you can now see it two different ways. As I'm going to share in examples in a minute, this collective mind influences the thoughts of the beings, the individual entities within the greater entity. And this is where synchronicities come in. But at the same time, our thoughts influence the greater entity. Ourselves, because we're part of it, it's like a singular wave that fluctuates and moves throughout the entire span of consciousness existing in this entity, in this fabric of the all that is, was, never could be. Now here's an example of this. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. So my favorite way to explain it is like, my favorite way I heard it was actually on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. He interviewed Robert Edward Grant, where Robert Edward Grant gave a very eloquent explanation of the Kybalion that was probably the best explanation of the Kybalion ever, probably way better than mine could be. But he explained that this idea of the all is mind, he was talking about an example of how he was out somewhere and he had seen or talked to someone who was talking about having a neck brace. And he was like, okay, that's kind of funny. I've never met someone or like talked to someone like closely who I've actually seen have a neck brace before. And he was like very surprised by it. Like, wow, that's funny. I haven't like thought of neck brace or seen neck brace in a long time. I've never seen this in reality. And then all of a sudden he gets on a call and his coworker is wearing a neck brace. And he's like, whoa. And he talks about, and essentially that's what we call synchronicity, right? One of my favorite, synchronicities are a perfect example of the all is mind and the universe is mental, because another example of this would be like when you were thinking about something. Have you ever noticed how, now this is also where we get into the argument that confirmation bias, where because we're thinking about something, we start looking for it. But if you've experienced synchronicity, you know this is not true. You deeply know this is not true, because have you ever had a moment in your life where you're thinking about something and then all of a sudden it just is all over the place? It's all over the place. You can't stop seeing it. You're seeing it everywhere. And the best example of this is with people, because sure, we can be like, I'm thinking about a, red Lamborghini. All of a sudden, like, I'm just obsessed with red Lamborghinis, and then we start seeing red Lamborghinis. Yeah, that could be a little bit more confirmation bias. However, when we have people coming into our life, specific people, it's even more of an example of synchronicity. So I remember one time we were on a trip, and we were like in the Grand Tetons, and we somehow happened to people that we'd been trying to meet up with, but we assumed and kind of put off and said like, oh, we're probably not gonna meet up with them, and we stopped talking to them, like talking about trying to coordinate plans. We stopped talking about it for a while, and then like a month later, we're in Grand Tetons, and we're pulled up to the sidewalk, and we walk out of the RV door, and we look to the left in Grand Teton National Park, and they're walking up right as we step out the door, probably like 300 feet away from us. And that was a perfect example of synchronicity, because we did not know that we were going to be there at the same time. Grand Teton National Park, we might have known we were both going to be at Grand Teton National Park that summer. Summer's a grand scheme of months and weeks. And on top of it, Grand Teton National Park is a very large region. And we happened to be at the exact same moment at the exact same time because of the observation of the thought. So that's one example. The second example would be like the other day I just had an experience like this. I was just thinking about something from the past, from when I was younger, and how I was just thinking, it was like a person in my life that I had been thinking about who kind of represented a big transition point for my own self-worth. And I was thinking about this person. I haven't seen this person in 5 years or so. And I was thinking about this person, and the place that I knew this person from, I had moved away from. And I was here in St. George, and I knew this person from San Diego. Hadn't thought about them. I don't follow them on social media. I don't do anything. And all of a sudden, I'm at my climbing gym, and I see this person. And it was crazy because I was just thinking about this person. Just thinking about it recently. This is a perfect example of how, if the fabric and structure of all of the grand mind is all connected, in theory, if we're all connected to this great mind, it makes sense that if ourself as a singular entity within that grand mind observes something, then it triggers effects in other regions within its own mind. In a way, you have to think of it as one singular brain. If you think of it as one brain combined, then it's not hard to see why one person with that person's brain triggers another person, because we wouldn't be surprised if a certain neuron in our brain triggers another neuron. If you think of it the same way as the all is mind, we are just neurons within that field. This is just a metaphor to explain how we are all connected, how when I have a thought, it influences other parts of the field. And all of a sudden, things attract, synchronicities happen. These things happen all the time. And again, it could be like that Robert Edward Grant example where it's just the observation of a thing. It's not a person related. And I laughed when me and my siblings joke about this, because the way Robert Edward Grant explained it is it's not always this direct cause and effect. It's not like mine is a little bit more of a direct cause and effect. I was thinking about this person, then oh my gosh, this is crazy. This person just randomly showed up in this big city at the same place at the same time as me. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it's more just like in Robert Edward Grant describes it, it's just like the universe or the mind going all of a sudden like neck brace. And all of a sudden, the all of this mind has suddenly decided to bring attention to the point in consciousness known as neck brace. The fabric of the universe, the mind of the universe, the all that is mind, may at any point in time suddenly decide to bring its conscious attention into one point. And it may signal a small extra observation on this point of consciousness, and all of a sudden now you as a subject to this influence of the all that is mind, you're going to feel that effect, and all of a sudden now you as on a point in time is going to bring attention in your own mind to this thing. Maybe it's like a speaker, maybe it's a person, maybe it's neck brace, maybe it's some specific story from your past, some specific person from your past. And other people are all linked. We're all linked. And so it doesn't mean every single person at the same time in the entire globe is going to think neck brace at the same time. But certain people are linked. And the mind, the all that is mind, may have different linked people, linked consciousnesses, linked containers associated with that thought. It may do this consciously. It may do this unconsciously. It may do this by choice, by will. And in theory, it is coming from this idea that part of our thought, in our thought, in our consciousness, is being influenced by a greater consciousness. That part of our will is decided by a greater will, and our will manifests as thought and observation of a thing. So that's an example of how this all that is mind kind of influences us, why this matters to us. It matters because it helps us make sense of some of the synchronicities. It also, why would we make sense of it when rather it helps us believe in magic. It helps us believe in magic because when you believe in magic, all of a sudden your life is spectacularly better, because it gives you the belief that you can change anything in your life that you don't like. Because in the end, that's why we're using this wisdom. We're using this wisdom to live up to our purpose. But as part of that, we live up to our purpose by actually going after the things we desire. Desire is not some accidental thing that we have. If we're saying this amazingly designed, this amazing universe where it's all structured around the fabric that is the all, why would we have desire accidentally? Desire is actually intentional. We have desire because it helps us overcome the obstacles that are standing in our way, and that's all that purpose is. Purpose is you moving towards your desires and moving closer to your authentic self. Because when you go after a desire, you're asked to step deeply into your authentic self, and purpose is overcoming the obstacles along the way. And so that's how the relationship between this first principle helps us in our life. It helps us understand, believe in magic, and go after those things and live up to our purpose. One of the interesting things, though, about the Kybalion is that the principle of mentalism, which, like I said, was created, written, spoken years and years and years and centuries ago, this principle basically suggests everything that we now know about quantum physics. So basically, what we now know because of quantum physics, we actually don't know anything. There's things in quantum physics, some of the best ones include terms like quantum entanglement, quantum tunneling, there's the observer effect, and there's also the uncertainty principle. And these four things are hilarious in a way, because in all that we know about quantum physics, we basically concluded that we don't have any reign on the idea of predictability. And quantum physics validates the idea that we live in an unpredictable universe. So quantum entanglement is hilarious because it's the idea that two particles can combine and create the same state, even if they're in different locations. Then you've also got the uncertainty principle, which is the idea that quantum physicists can't know the location and the momentum of a particle in space at the same time. Like, it's literally impossible for them to know both at the same time. Then you've got quantum tunneling, which is the idea that a particle cannot go past, it passes through what is supposed to be an impossible barrier. So there's these general laws of physics, and quantum tunneling is basically the idea that it breaks classic laws of physics, which is the idea that it breaks through what our perceived reality, what we think that physics is what it is. We think that, oh, this is the box of how the fabric and structure of the universe works. Well, quantum tunneling is the idea that, oh, the fabric and structure of the universe is not what I thought it was. And basically you have all these principles, right? And actually, I'm going to touch on my favorite one really quick, is the observer effect. The observer effect is the idea that energy, before it's observed, is in wave form. And when that energy is observed, it becomes particle, localized. So wave is energy that is over a span of space and time, and particle is when that energy is localized into a singular point in space and time. And particle is what we can technically observe in this reality if it's in particle form. Obviously through like high level microscopes, people can observe particles. However, why is it that our consciousness influences the way that energy behaves? Predictable universe? I don't think so. So basically what the Kybalion said to be true a really long time ago, it's kind of basically all just been validated by quantum physics. It's not a predictable universe. And if we're not in a predictable universe, then everything that you think you know may not be known. And if everything you think you know may not be known, then why not be open to the idea that we are all one collective entity of a singular mind, fragmented into singular smaller entities in containers that hold the capacity of the loving nature of universal energy, the source nature of reality, source energy. And we're all just containers for that. Containers carrying our own minds, thoughts, ideas, and perceptions, but are just as much being influenced by the greater mind as we are influencing the greater mind. And so that's kind of the other interesting side to this. The collective mind, the all, may have this sudden idea to bring into conscious awareness something like rock climbing. And maybe all of a sudden that the idea of rock climbing gets signaled into these smaller entities at the same time. And all of a sudden there's just these like a couple hundred people that just decide that they just suddenly discover rock climbing. And there's all these different things that people will be like, I just discovered this thing. Well, it's always existed. So why is it that you're just discovering it now? Is it your own free will that you discovered it, or is it not? Maybe it's the collective will. But that is you. The all that is mind is still you. That's why you still have will and power and freedom. On the other end of the spectrum, maybe this is not true, maybe this is true, maybe that's both. Maybe you, as an individual entity with your own programming in childhood, because you still had a childhood, you still had a life, you still have this whole series of belief systems and this operating system through which you're seeing the world through. But you, as this container going through this life experience and this incarnation on Earth, maybe your thought that you have is not an independent, but maybe you are the creator, the instigator, and the conscious observer of a certain thing that then signals the greater mind to then signal other minds. Arguably, this would be like why those synchronicities that I shared would happen. Because I observed this memory from my past. Because I thought of that person in that time, in that moment, it signaled other people in other times, in other moments, to attract two people or two moments into the same localized point in time through that observer effect. We can be instigators of this all that is mind. Maybe, who knows? But you can look at this from that perspective, and if you do, then it gives you the power to realize that, one, you have the power to create things in this reality. And two, when things happen, it might not be that every single synchronicity that happens is for a reason, but perhaps there is some greater lesson that's being dripped in. Maybe your life and everything that's happening and unfolding in your life, even if you're in a hard spot in your life, maybe this is part of some collective greater reason. Maybe it's not even part of some grandiose reason. Maybe you have this hero's journey that you're trying to live out, and that the all that is mind is trying to support you in getting towards and arriving at, because in the interest of the all that is mind, I think that the all that is mind wants every person to live out their hero's journey, because it is part of the universe expressing itself. The all that is expressing itself, consciousness expressing itself, wants to be expressed by moving up through the scale of consciousness, through the scale of energy, and not down into the darkness of stagnation of energy. Because when you experience retractive energy and your consciousness is low and heavy, and you're feeling guilt and anger and shame, then consciousness is not expressing itself as intensely as it is when it's in the states of joy and love and fulfilling its highest potential. So to wrap this video up on the principle of mentalism, I'm going to share 4 steps for how you can embody the path to mastery of this principle of mentalism. Now, of course, I don't think any of us truly master the principle of mentalism, because it is just to say that everything was, and ever could be, exists all at the same time. You can't master it, because the mind is so grandiose and so much greater than yourself that you, as a piece within that puzzle, cannot master the entire puzzle. However, you can use these tools to live up to your highest purpose, your highest potential, your highest joy and peace and vibration, which is part of the collective growth of the all. And you do this by embodying these 4 steps. So the first and most important step that you can take on this journey to mastery is for you to carefully identify the program that has been instilled in your own mind. If you are a piece in this puzzle, if you are a horcrux within this greater mind, if you are a container that holds a piece of the collective mind, don't you want to understand the filters that have been put on your mind that are preventing you from accessing the greater mind? Wouldn't you want to understand the different perceptions and illusions that you're living your own life by, to clear them away and make room for, essentially, pure mind consciousness to be able to express itself through? Theoretically speaking, this would probably give you access to a greater understanding of your purpose. It would probably give you access to probably much greater attraction abilities, as in like the law of attraction. But what we don't realize so often, and what you would know if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, is that you have so many filters and illusions. Each and every single one of us has this perception that we're seeing the world through. And again, I like to refer to it as like a computer. We come into this world, this body, this being, because these bodies are containers. This being is on this earth, and then we have this experience from 0 to 14 that creates our operating system, just like the operating system of a computer. And it's great because, like, we need that operating system to operate supposedly based on our own laws of how we think that the world needs to operate. Side note, but that operating system gives us our own unique illusion that we're living our lives by. And this basically holds us back from actually being able to manifest the lives that we really want, the realities that we're totally capable and deserving of. Our beliefs around what we have right now, the idea of how much we earn, who we can be with, how much we're able to travel, how much time we have, what we're allowed to spend our lives doing, is all coming from that perception. You will not be able to shift your thoughts, attract new things, script a new life, until you first identify what is the story that's going on in your life right now. What is the story you're telling yourself? Because that's all it is. Your programming your belief systems, it's the story that you're telling yourself. A lot of times it requires a level of mindfulness to tune in and recognize what that story is, because so much of our thoughts are subconscious. Like I said, 95% is subconscious. So you have to tune in and make the dedicated effort to understanding what those programs are. Use your triggers in your life to be indicators into some of the pain you're holding from your childhood, pain that you're holding on to from your past. Limiting dialogues that you might say to yourself are also indicators to the story that you're telling yourself, how you speak to yourself. If you can identify the program, if you can identify the filter that is standing in your own way, then you'll be able to shift it. And so the second step is to actually shift your thoughts. We're operating, we're talking about the Kybalion, which is this macro spiritual outlook on the idea from the collective mind to the singular mind, the individual entity. I loved the mentioning that it explains how this principle explains that all the phenomenal world or universe, so our world, is simply a mental creation of the all. This is our mental construct of what we think the all is. And in that world, it's subject to the laws of created things. We are subject to the own laws of the things that we have created. And so because we've created these laws of what we think that the brain operates, psychology operates, we're now subject to them. So because we observed them in the first place, maybe the primal brain, because we observed them, now they exist, now we have to follow them. So we are following our primal brains here. We're following these negativity biases in this realm that we've created in this universe. Point being, you are more likely to think and feel the same way you think and feel most often. So if you think and feel a certain way, you're more likely to think and feel that way in the future. The more you do it, the more it perpetuates itself. And this is why we use the term rewiring your brain. Rewiring your brain is about consciously choosing new neural pathways to fire, new pathways to take in your own thought processes. And the more you take those new paths, the less likely you are to think the old things. Breaking your past patterns is about thinking in a new way, thinking in your future self. And so getting out of that we all have flawed perceptions, requires you to step into the conscious disciplinary action of choosing new thought patterns. And I really love thinking about this mastery process. I always love thinking about it as a feminine and a masculine healing and growth at the same time. Feminine is about giving yourself the nurturance to look back at your childhood and be the love you need for yourself, nurturing yourself, noticing the pains, noticing the hard points, noticing the things that made you believe all the things about yourself and how life is hard and how you hate yourself, whatever. Nurturing yourself there. And now you're stepping into this masculine, this leadership role in your own life to lead and choose the new thoughts that you wish to have to create a new life. Now the key third step is to actually start to script the life you're trying to attract. Because you stepping into the power of the greater all, accessing from your singular entity into the greater entity, is about you stepping into your purpose. And you stepping into your purpose is about choosing what your next desire is. Choosing not just dopamine, choosing what it is that you want. Is it a relationship that you want, a healthy relationship? Is it a career that you want? Is it something that for yourself, is it this new sport or this new activity you want to take on? Is it that you want to travel? Is it that you want to move places? What is it that you want in your life? It's not something grandiose, like crazy, like I gotta change the world. What is it that you want in your journey, your hero's journey? What do you want next? That's your purpose. Don't deny yourself the idea that you need to do something selfless and sacrificing. From there, scripting your new life is the key to breaking out of your old patterns of thinking. You have to be able to replace your old story with a new story, and you can't be left with this gray space in the middle. You need to be able to shift it, looking at the new life that you're trying to live and starting to think and feel in your new reality. And last but not least, in order to actually change, because we now know, based off of this idea that it all is mind, and based off of this whole quantum universe that we basically are the one and the same, we know that what we put into our minds manifests in the external world. And so if we're thinking about something and if we're thinking about it, it will be manifest. If we observe something, it will be manifest. The observer effect influences the way that energy manifests, interacts with us. It turns, if we observe something long enough, it materializes into a particle. What do you want to manifest then? That's where scripting comes in. But also knowing that this step 4 is about changing what is influencing you. What influences you, the information that you're inputting into yourself, is going to influence your beliefs, your thought patterns. That thought feeling cycle creates belief systems, and the more it's repeated, the more it's a belief. So if you're exposing yourself to social media and TV and negative influences or negative people, they are going to influence the thoughts that you have, and the thoughts that you have are going to influence what materializes. So if you're trying to change what materializes in your life, you're going to have to change the things that are being inputted into you. You can do this from the inside out. You can rewire your brain, but sometimes we're exposing ourselves to too much input that is influencing our subconscious and that is manifesting through our subconscious into the conscious, a part of this collective conscious. So change how you're interacting with external stimuli. Change what external stimuli is influencing you, and you'll have way more mastery over the principle of mentalism, over the all that is mind, and embracing your own power as a fractal within that greater mind. Now, I hope this video was helpful for you to understand the principle of mentalism. I hope you enjoyed my interpretation of it, because again, it's just my interpretation of it. This is not right or wrong. This is my own observation, my own thought process as I go through the book of the Kybalion. In the next video, I'll be going into the second principle of Hermetic philosophy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like this video. Let me know what you liked or didn't like in the comments down below. And if you're excited to see the next video, let me know in the comments below too. Thank you guys for joining me. Namaste.